Hello, you're watching the Think Tank M&A show in partnership with Dukascopy TV. I'm here today in Geneva with the Leidar CEO, Mr. Rolf Olsen, to speak about reputation management, public relations, and communication during M&A times. Welcome, Mr. Olsen.
Thank you.
So, can you share with us what Leidar does and what it stands for?
Well, Leidar is actually the name that the Vikings used for the Polaris or the North Star. So they used the Leidar star as a point of navigation. And that's what we do. We help people kind of set their course, navigate, and then communicate.
And can you share with us some of your experience with M&A?
Yeah, I tried to count, at least I've been involved in more than 1 billion M&A projects in my career, having worked about 20 years for 2 Fortune 50 companies and then in consulting for the last 15 years. I've seen quite a lot of things that have gone wrong and a few things that have gone very well.
So in your experience, what was the most difficult part with the M&A you've seen?
Well, I think that if there's one common denominator for the problems that I see is that people fail to deal with people, in a good way. So we're pretty good at dealing with the assets and getting the synergies out, but when it comes to people, it seems to be more difficult.
And what role do you play when there is a public relation dimension to the M&A?
Well, sometimes it has been in my career a matter of coming up with the rationale after the deal has been done. So you explain why this is a good deal, while actually the reason might have been different. Other times it's really to help people get the strength of the deal out, and if you work more strategically, it would be to work with senior management to identify what kind of gaps do we have culture-wise and how can we bridge those gaps in terms of building a more common view of the future through the two merged entities.
Can you share with us an example of this cultural gap you've experienced?
Yeah, I guess I have to be careful. But my 2 Fortune 50 companies that I work for have both kind of ceased to exist, so that's quite exceptional. The first one was Digital Equipment Corporation, which was a very successful computer company, and we did some very good mergers and acquisitions. We started at early 90s, and I remember one company where we were making an acquisition with Mannesmann, where we acquired Mannesmann Kinsley, which was a fabulous company in terms of technology, about 4,000 people. But Mannesmann and digital were 2 different animals. And I remember coming to Mannesmann headquarters, quite a young guy at the time. Very informal style, not very well, dressed up, because we were, more relaxed at digital. And we got onto the executive floor at the Mannesmann headquarters, where there were waiters, with gloves and, a very formal style. So I could see that this was going to be interesting. But I think the merger afterwards with the Kinsley operation went a lot better than the sense we had, meeting up with those 2 different cultures. So that's one example.
That's an example of 2 big companies working together. Do you have example of a big company acquiring a smaller company, for instance, a startup?
Yeah, I've seen, having worked in technology, that you embrace a very innovative technology and you get the founder with you, and often you see that the founder struggle with being part of a big corporate culture. So of course that's dealt with the right incentives and earnouts and all of that. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with becoming part of a big corporate entity.
And have you had to deal with a crisis management situation from a PR standpoint or from a reputation management standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, almost all big M&A procedures are material in the sense that you have to make sure that you inform, at the same time to everybody, with stock information and so forth. So I've seen a couple of incidents where things have leaked, and where that has almost brought down the merger. So the idea of protecting the process and keeping it secret is obviously the biggest risk factor when it comes to communication, and that's where some big mergers really have faltered.
So you worked with different kind of industries. So now when you look at these different industries, which one do you think is more likely to consolidate in the near future?
Well, I work a lot with the telecoms industry, having spent most of my career in computing or telecoms, and clearly with what's happening in the industry, with going from 3G to 4G and now to 5G, totally changes the idea of how applications work, what you could do with applications. So you see a flurry of new applications and new startups. At the same time, the telecom vendors need to redo their business models, and some cope with that very well and others will not. So I think we're going to continue to see a lot of consolidation in that industry as companies struggle to keep their profits. And another is clearly energy, oil. I'm Norwegian, so I spend a lot of time, and we have an operation in Norway. You see now the impact of the falling oil prices, on the the whole entire country, and in America, with the the oil price being below the threshold for many of the projects, you will see also, I think, a lot of consolidation going forward, and it's happening now.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing this insight. Thank you for watching the Think Tank M&A show in collaboration with Dukascopy TV, and for now, goodbye.